I'm 37 years old, a mother to three wonderful children. 7-year-old twins. A boy and a girl. And a 5-year-old daughter. My husband and I recently made the decision to move back to our hometown. It's a quiet, laid-back beach town. The kind of place where people know each other, and the waves seem to slow life down. I haven't lived in a town like this since before college, and honestly, it's not exactly where I envision spending the next chapter of my life. I've been living in cities for as long as I can remember, and the fast pace of urban life is something I've grown used to. There's always something happening, and I like that. But family comes first, and my husband and I both agreed that moving back to be closer to our families was important, especially as our kids grow up. The decision wasn't easy, though. I had a job I loved, friends I would miss, and the thought of moving to a quieter, slower place wasn't exactly thrilling. So my husband and I made a little deal to sweeten the move. Since I agreed to uproot our lives, leave my job, and embrace this new lifestyle, we would buy a house with a pool, something I'd dreamed about since I was a kid. It wasn't that serious, but the idea of having a pool felt like a reward for everything I was giving up. It's something I'd always wanted, and as we began house hunting, it became one of those things that kept me excited about the move. We found the perfect house, and it felt like everything was falling into place. The house is just a short walk from the beach, which means we'll still have easy access to the water, something I've always loved. It's close to my parents' home, which will make it convenient for family gatherings. Each of the kids will have their own room, something that was becoming more important as they got older. And, of course, the house had a pool, complete with a water slide. It wasn't just a pool, it was like something out of my childhood fantasies. Our kids were over the moon when we told them, and we all started imagining pool parties and lazy summer days spent swimming. We entered escrow, and I felt like we were making a good decision for our family. But there's some context here that's important to the story, and it revolves around my husband's family, specifically his mother. My husband is the oldest of 4 kids, but the family is haunted by a tragedy that happened years ago. His younger sister, the baby of the family and the only girl, drowned when she was 11. She was swimming with friends in a lake, got caught in some underwater shrubbery, and drowned before anyone could save her. The loss was devastating for the entire family, but I don't think my mother-in-law has ever really recovered from it. Her house is filled with pictures of my husband's sister. Her bedroom is essentially a shrine, and whenever my mother-in-law sees our daughters, she gets teary-eyed, as if they remind her of what she lost. I've always understood that my mother-in-law's grief runs deep, and it's shaped a lot of how she interacts with the world, especially when it comes to water and children. She's kind and loving, a wonderful grandmother, but there's an undercurrent of sadness in her, and water-related activities trigger a lot of anxiety for her. My husband and I both know that, but we've tried to balance our fears with our desire to raise our kids with confidence around water. They love to swim, and we've always made water safety a priority. They took swim lessons early on, and they're all great swimmers. We've done everything we can to make sure they're comfortable and safe in the water. Still, my mother-in-law has expressed her discomfort with our choices before. For example, when our youngest daughter was just over a year old, we enrolled her in swim lessons. We wanted her to get comfortable in the water early, so we took a mommy and me style class where I was in the water with her the whole time. My mother-in-law didn't like that at all. She thought it was way too early and too dangerous for a child so young to be in the water. I tried explaining that we were taking every precaution and that it was important for her to learn water safety early, but my mother-in-law couldn't shake her fear. It was the same story when our son showed interest in surfing lessons. She was against it, convinced that spending too much time in the ocean was dangerous for young kids. We've had to navigate her anxieties over water for a while now, but we've always tried to be understanding. A few days ago, my husband and I were on a video call with his parents, catching up and sharing the latest news. I showed them pictures of the house we're moving into, excited to share the details about the pool and how much the kids are looking forward to it. As soon as my mother-in-law saw the pictures of the pool, her entire demeanor changed. She went pale, and I could see the panic set in. She asked how we could possibly move into a house with a pool when we have 3 young children. I tried to explain that the kids are all excellent swimmers, that we have strict rules about swimming only when we're present, and that we're getting a gated fence with a lock and an alarm installed around the pool for extra safety. But none of that seemed to matter. She started crying, and through her tears, she told us that drowning is the leading cause of death for young children. She couldn't believe we would be so reckless with the lives of our kids, especially knowing what happened to her daughter. My husband tried to calm her down, but it was clear that she was beyond reason. She was furious, and before we could say anything else, she hung up the phone. My husband has been feeling terrible ever since. He's not worried about the pool itself. We both trust the precautions we're taking to keep our kids safe, but he's worried about his mom's mental health. He feels guilty for not thinking about how moving into a house with a pool would affect her. He's convinced that his parents won't be able to come over now, because his mom will be so consumed with anxiety about the pool. He said she'll be obsessively watching the kids and the water the entire time, unable to relax. He's also worried that we won't be able to host family gatherings, holidays, or birthday parties at our house because there will always be young kids around the pool, and it will be too much for her to handle. I've seen how anxious she gets around water. A few years ago, we were at a family reunion, and there was a lazy river at the hotel. My 4-year-old nephew, who was wearing a life vest, flipped over for just a second, and my mother-in-law jumped into the water, fully clothed, to grab him. It's clear that her trauma runs deep. I don't know if I'm being insensitive, but I don't think we were wrong to buy this house. My mother-in-law has serious trauma, and I understand that, but if we lived our lives according to all of her fears, our kids wouldn't be able to do anything. She's always had strong opinions about how we raise our kids, particularly when it comes to water. But we've made decisions that prioritize their safety and their happiness. We've given them the tools they need to be confident in the water, and we've taken every precaution we can. I don't think that's reckless. I think it's responsible parenting. I'm starting to wonder if we made a mistake by moving into this house, not because of the pool itself, but because of the effect it's having on my husband's family. My husband feels torn. He knows we're doing the right thing for our kids, but he can't shake the guilt he feels for triggering his mom's trauma. He's worried that we'll be isolating ourselves from his family by choosing a house with a pool. I keep telling him that we'll work through it, that his mom will learn to cope, but deep down, I'm not sure. This isn't the first time her anxiety has clashed with our parenting decisions, but it feels like the stakes are higher now. Part of me feels like we're being unfairly judged for wanting something that brings us joy. A pool isn't just a luxury to us, it's a way for our family to bond and spend time together. Our kids are excited about it, and I was excited too. But now, that excitement is clouded by this looming sense of guilt. I feel like I'm constantly balancing between wanting to create a happy life for my own family and trying to accommodate the emotional needs of my husband's family. I'm not sure what the right answer is here. I don't want to dismiss my mother-in-law's trauma or make her feel like her feelings don't matter. But I also don't want to live in a constant state of worry about what will trigger her next. This pool was supposed to be a source of happiness for us, not something that would cause more stress and anxiety. Maybe we were a bit insensitive. Maybe we should have thought more about how this would affect my husband's parents, particularly his mom. But at the same time, we've done everything we can to make sure our kids are safe, and I don't think it's fair for us to miss out on something that brings us joy because of someone else's fears. We're not being reckless. We're being responsible, and I'm trying to remind myself of that as we navigate this difficult situation. In the end, I know that we're doing what's best for our family. But part of me can't shake the feeling that no matter.
I'm 39 years old, and for the past year, I've been living with my girlfriend, who's 41. We've been together for a little longer than that, but it was just over a year ago that she moved into my house. It seemed like a natural progression at the time. We were spending most of our nights together anyway, and sharing a space full-time made sense. I'd been living alone for years before that, so having her move in was an adjustment, but one I was willing to make. Relationships require compromise, and I was committed to making this work. However, over time, one thing became glaringly apparent. My girlfriend has a habit of distressing by complaining. I don't say this lightly, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it happens a lot. Most of her complaints are about other people in her life: her mother, her former coworkers, the lady at the grocery store, The driver who cut her off in traffic. She seems to carry a lot of stress around, and I guess this is how she deals with it. She'll go on and on about things that, frankly, don't seem like a big deal to me, but I try to be a supportive partner. I'll nod, I'll listen, and I'll make the appropriate sounds to show I'm paying attention. At first, it didn't really bother me. I figured everyone needs to vent now and then. But as time went on, I realized that much of her complaining started to be about me and how I wasn't meeting her expectations in one way or another. Now, I'm no stranger to criticism. I get it, I'm not perfect. But the frequency with which she points out things I do wrong or ways I fall short started to wear on me. I could handle it in small doses, but lately, it feels like there's always something. Whether it's about how I load the dishwasher, how I don't respond to her texts fast enough during the day, or how I forget to put the cap back on the toothpaste, there's always a new issue. I find myself constantly on edge, waiting for the next round of complaints. Despite all of this, I try to be patient. I really do. I understand that she's dealing with her own stuff, and this is how she processes things. But there's one time of day when I simply can't deal with it, during dinner. I work 6 days a week, so breakfast isn't an issue because she's still asleep when I eat it. Lunch is also fine because I'm out of the house, usually grabbing something quickly during a break at work. But when I come home and sit down for dinner, all I want is a few minutes of peace. I want to enjoy my meal without the constant barrage of complaints or criticism. I don't think that's too much to ask. Unfortunately, my girlfriend doesn't seem to understand this. When we eat dinner together, she'll start talking, and by talking, I mean she'll start complaining. It's not just that she's talking while I'm eating, that, in itself, wouldn't be a problem. The issue is that she expects me to respond immediately, even when I'm in the middle of chewing. If I take too long to answer, she'll start in with, "Hello? Hello? Are you even listening?" as I try to swallow my food and give her a response. It's exhausting. A few months ago, I finally brought it up to her. I tried to be as nice as possible about it. I told her that I don't do well with talking during meals and that I would really appreciate a little quiet time while I eat. I wasn't trying to start a fight. I just wanted her to understand that dinner is my time to unwind, and constant complaints while I'm eating make it impossible for me to enjoy my meal. I figured she'd take it to heart, maybe tone things down a bit during dinner. But instead, it seemed to have the opposite effect. I don't know if she's doing it on purpose, but it feels like she's timing her complaints to start the moment I begin eating. While I'm cooking or preparing my dinner, she'll be quiet, maybe watching TV or scrolling through her phone. Even when I sit down and wait for the food to cool, she doesn't say much. But as soon as I take that first bite, it's like a switch flips, and she immediately starts in on something. It's always something small, something I didn't do or something that bothered her earlier in the day. But the timing is what gets to me. It's like she knows exactly when to start, and I can't escape it. Last Saturday was the breaking point. We were sitting at the table, and I'd already told her earlier in the day that I couldn't handle any more complaints during dinner. I told her that if it happened again, I would start eating elsewhere. I was clear about my boundaries, and she said she understood. But that night, as soon as I took my first bite, she started in again. This time, it was about how I'd accidentally kicked one of her shoes while putting mine on earlier in the day. She said it made her feel like I didn't care about her things, like I was only concerned with my own stuff. That was the moment I decided I couldn't do it anymore. I stood up, took my plate, and walked down to the basement. I didn't say a word. I just grabbed my food and left. The basement has always been my space. I've got a little setup down there where I can relax, watch TV, and get away from the chaos of the rest of the house. It's always been my refuge, and at that moment, I needed it. I locked the door behind me, sat down, and ate my dinner in peace for the first time in what felt like weeks. Since that night, I've made a habit of eating my dinners in the basement. It's the only place where I can get some quiet. I've been locking the door every time, and it's been working for me, but it's causing some tension with my girlfriend. She'll bang on the door at times, demanding that I come back upstairs or let her in. At other times, she's asked for a key to the basement so she can come down whenever she wants. But I haven't given her one. The basement is my space, and right now, it's the only place where I can find any peace. Today was the worst it's been. She was crying and begging me to eat dinner at the table with her. I could hear her through the door, pleading with me to come back upstairs. I knew she was upset, but I couldn't bring myself to give in. I just wanted to eat my meal in silence. I wanted one part of my day where I didn't have to listen to complaints or answer questions with a mouthful of food. So I stayed in the basement and finished my dinner alone. Now, she's threatening to take the door off its hinges while I'm at work tomorrow. She says if I'm going to keep locking myself down here, she'll make sure I can't lock the door anymore. So I've decided that tomorrow, I'll lock the basement from the outside before I leave for work. I'm not sure what else to do at this point. I feel like I've made my boundaries clear, but she's not respecting them. I don't think I'm asking for much, just a little peace during dinner. But apparently, that's too much to ask. The situation has me questioning whether I'm in the wrong here. Am I the asshole for locking myself in the basement so I can eat in peace? I know she's upset, and I don't want to hurt her, but at the same time, I feel like I have a right to some quiet time during my meals. I've tried talking to her about it, and I've tried to be patient, but nothing seems to change. Every night, it's the same thing, and I'm at my wit's end. Part of me feels guilty for locking her out. I know it's not the healthiest way to deal with things, but I don't know what else to do. If I stay upstairs and try to eat dinner with her, I know I'll end up feeling frustrated and resentful. And if I don't get some quiet time to unwind, I feel like I'm going to snap. It's not that I don't love her or care about her, I do. But the constant complaints and criticism are draining me, and I need some space to recharge. I don't know what the long-term solution is here. Maybe we need to have another conversation about boundaries, or maybe we need to find a way to address her need to complain without it affecting me so much. But for now, all I know is that the basement is my refuge, and I'm not ready to give it up. I need that space, even if it means locking the door and eating my dinner alone. Am I the asshole for handling things this way? Maybe, but right now, it feels like the only way I can get through the day without losing my mind. And until something changes, I'm going to keep locking the door and eating in peace, because at the end of the day, that's what I need to stay sane.